from Kern Government Television. Welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy. And our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Okay, board to reconvene. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Flores.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, April 18th, 2023 p.m. session of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. Ms. Raison, would you please give us a report on actions taken in closed session?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. This morning in closed session, you considered items 61 through 66. There is no reportable action except for item 66, and in that matter, your board authorized settlement.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Raison. Okay, we will begin by considering the consent agenda. Agendas are located on the tables at the back of the room if anyone wants to follow along. All items listed with the CA or C above the item number are considered to be routine and uncontroversial by county staff. The CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors, and the C represents the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority and the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda and it will be considered in its listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. At this time, I will read the consent agenda item numbers for the Board of Supervisors agenda. Starting on page 3, items 6 through 8. Page 4, items 9 through 11. Page 5, items 12 through 18. Page 6, items 19 through 24. On page 7, item 25 and item 27 has been withdrawn and will not be considered. Items 28 through 31. On page 8, items 32 through 38. On page 9, items 39 through 45. On page 10, items 46 through 52. On page 11, items 53 through 58. And on page 12, items 59 through 64. Those are the consent agenda items. And would any board member like to remove any items for discussion? Okay, seeing none, before I entertain a motion for the consent, I do want to make one notation that under the non-consent items, under 26, that has also been withdrawn by staff. Okay, are there any public comments on the consent agenda? Go ahead.
Item number 44.
Okay, go ahead. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Honorable Chairman Flores and Supervisors. My name is Rebecca Vaughn. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address your board regarding this agenda item. I had braces put on recently, so I have a little bit of trouble talking. Still getting used to them. So my position within the county is Director of Fiscal Research and Planning for the Probation Department, where I've been an employee for over 11 and a half years. I'm here before your board regarding a fiscal management position that's on attachment A to this agenda item, and to address your board regarding certain fiscal management positions within the county who have not yet received promised pay adjustments. The business manager and administrative services officer positions are at least 7% below comparable positions, and the senior administrative and fiscal services officer and director of fiscal research and planning positions are 32% below comparable county fiscal management positions, and in one case, 45% below. This has been the case since January 1st of 2022, 16 months. When the department informed Mr. Devin Brown of these disparities in March of 2022, he indicated that pay disparity for these positions would not be reviewed until after the accountant series pay was adjusted. Mr. Brown's response was that the accountant is the beginning of the series. However, the accountant is not a requirement for nearly all fiscal management positions within the county, except for the auditor controller's division chief, which is on this agenda. The accountant position series was resolved on December 17th of 2022. However, as an example, our department business manager who oversees the accountants now earns 1/2 cent more per hour than the senior accountant. Over the past 13 months, our department has made numerous requests to Mr. Brown to fix the issue, providing all backup documentation showing the disparities. Several weeks ago, Mr. Brown informed our chief that pay equity adjustments for the affected positions would be on this meeting's agenda. They are not. After inquiring why the positions were not on the agenda, Mr. Brown stated to the chief that now an equity study of all fiscal management positions would be done first before anything is done.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh,
with
your
these
time's
positions.
expired.
Oh, okay.
We'll wrap
I
up.
just want to say thank you for allowing me to present, and I ask that consideration for that position. By the way, it's not mentioned in the agenda item at all. No justification. It's not in the sub-agenda. There's nothing in the board letter. So I'm not understanding why that position is being approved, or
Okay.
up for approval today.
Okay, thank you.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda before we go to a vote? Okay, seeing none. Yeah, sure. Supervisor Perez.
I don't want to leave this woman hanging as to a question that was proposed. I don't know if it's appropriate to do that before the vote or after, but I certainly want to preserve the opportunity to make progress on at least attempting to answer a question.
Sure.
Ryan, I don't know if you can intervene. Chair, thank you for your indulgence.
Sure. Mr. Alsop, would you like to comment?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we're aware. We are working on it. It is more complicated than just a fix. There are considerations countywide that we have to make, but we're working on it.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Perez. Thank you, Mr. Alsop. Okay, at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda and to also adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Did I hear the speaker correctly say that someone's going to make more than someone who's maybe they're supervising or that they're ahead of in seniority or what have you? Did you hear it, Mr. Alsop? Does that create an issue for us? I know it creates an issue, but does it create an issue in the time in which you think you can bring the fix, quote unquote, back to us?
We're working on bringing a fix to your board. Supervisor Couch, it is, these things happen when salaries get adjusted. We've got 8,000 employees, lots of different classifications, and there are times when one action creates a need for an additional action somewhere else. But we're aware of everything that the speaker pointed out, and we're working through it. There are ramifications beyond just her classification in the rest of the county, and we are simply being thoughtful and trying to make the best business decision here with the focus on delivering something and bringing it to your board for your consideration as soon as we can.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Members, cast your vote.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. This time, we are now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority, and I will consider the consent agenda, which includes item C-1. If any member of the audience would like to comment on this item, now is the time. Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Members, cast your vote.
Motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, thank you. We are now sitting as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District, and we'll consider the consent agenda item, which includes item C-2. If there's any members of the public who would like to comment on that on that consent item, now's the time.
So moved, Chairman.
Okay. Motion? Just need a second. Second, okay. Members cast your vote.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Okay. We are now reconvened as the Board of Supervisors and will consider item number 3 in public presentations. Okay. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct the staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name before making your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ralph Robles, R-A-L-P-H, middle initial I, R-O-B-L-E-S, and I am a veteran with a very unhappy set of questions that never got answered by Ms. Espinoza when she gave her recent report. Among them was the explanation for the miraculous achievement of finding 193 deceased citizens to vote in our last election. And also, no one explained to me how many times the count was interrupted and for why or for how long. How many votes were adjudicated and for what reason, and what was the outcome? No, also, no one told me why the people who were supposed to be observing the count were not allowed within 6 feet of the count to where they could observe the signature verification. And it was never explained how many votes were rejected during adjudication, and also how many times the vote was, excuse me, stopped. These may not seem to be very important questions to the board here, but I did not bring them in for any trivial reasons. These are indicators that there are problems with our ballot counting system. So I am noting that around this country.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. Since your time has come to an end, can I ask you a quick question? Because I want to.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure the county is helpful and respectful to the questions that you raised. Did you submit your questions to Amy Espinoza already?
I submitted it to those questions to the board, if you'll recall, sir, in writing. And most of them were verbal, but a large percentage of them were in writing. And I did receive a report back by Ms. Bedard, who explained that my question of the surveillance cameras for the ballot boxes were located within visibility of the drop boxes. However, Ms. Espinoza in her report was explaining how they were going to have surveillance cameras.
Got it. No, but this is, I'm trying to help you get the answers you want. And I know you're public.
No, I did not receive a single satisfactory answer, sir.
My question, though, is not the questions to our board in a forum, but did you officially and publicly or privately give your questions to Ms. Amy Espinoza, our auditor controller? Did you submit them to her?
No, I submitted them, I believe, to Ms. Kraus. I think it was the one that I gave them to.
Okay.
And in any case, it was someone up here before me.
Okay, so I'm not going to tell you how to do your inquiry, but I would also suggest you send them to her directly for a response. And what I'll do is get with Kathy Kraus, our clerk of the board, to see if we can retrieve those questions and forward them to our auditor controller. Okay, so you can get the answers that you're seeking. Okay, sir?
Well, thank you, sir, for your verbose tap dance.
Well, it's not tap dance. I'm trying to help you get answers to the questions that you're asking for.
Answer the questions.
Okay, I'm not the auditor controller, so I can't answer them, but
Maybe you should be educated enough to answer them, sir.
Okay, I'm not going to get into my education, but what I'm going to get into is trying to assist you in getting the answers that you seek. And so either you can get them directly to the auditor controller whose answers you're seeking, or I'll find them for you and forward them to you. That's not a tap dance.
That sounds more acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so board member comments or announcements? Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, public comment. I always want to move forward. Sorry, public comment.
Good afternoon. I'm Claire Hartley, C-L-A-I-R-E-H-A-R-T-L-E-Y. And I live in Lake Isabella, Supervisor Peters' district, Kern River Valley. I've been there 19 years, and I also own 2 rentals. Mr. Walters and I are here particularly this afternoon about squatters. Yes, squatters are a big problem and a growing problem. I lived a neighborhood over 50 years ago, and my neighborhood was a nice neighborhood when I moved in 20 years ago. Well, the people have passed away. Their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren aren't particularly interested in the 6 months and multiple thousands of dollars it takes to evict squatters, and I know that's not a county issue. But we voted for the sales tax increase, hoping to get more sheriffs. We used to have more sheriffs. Animal control driving around, street sweepers and things. My taxes and insurance have quadrupled since I've been there. These people move in, and maybe not always, but it sure seems like they are the drug dealers, they are the criminals. You can't leave a solar light out that they can sell for $1 for their heroin and methamphetamine. They party all the time. Well, you have no rules on the number of dogs, but there are dogs roaming the streets all the time. It's noise. I shouldn't have to sleep with a face mask and earplugs because I can't sleep with all this partying going on. My number one solution is to grab a few graduate students from the university or even community colleges and help out the assessor's office to sell these places, because it's been a dozen years, not just my neighborhood or the surrounding neighborhoods, but the whole Kern River Valley. Some of these places haven't paid taxes in a dozen years, and it does take some time and effort and money for the county to sell these places. At least 11 places have burned down in my neighborhood of 149. They've burned down. Now they're vacant lots, but they sit for over a year before I realize it takes $20,000 to clear a lot of a burned down, stinky mobile home.
Thank you, Ms. Hartley.
And if we could sell those.
Your time's expired, but thank you so much for coming before us.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate your listening.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Chairman Flores. I just wanted to address some of those things. I can't speak to those certain individual or particular cases because I'm not familiar necessarily with each individual one, but I do know that there have been a lot of vacant properties in the Kern River Valley and throughout Kern County, and that's something we're aware of and we're working on addressing, and I can only imagine your frustration at the issue with squatters. I don't believe I've had a chance to speak with either of you about that, but if either of you could reach out to my office, we could talk about it and see what we can figure out or start working on a solution to that. I'd be happy to see what we can do.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Peters. Okay, next speaker.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. With Claire over here, my name is Jeff Walters. I'm also a resident out there at Lake Isabella. And I've taken it upon myself to investigate how to find a problem or find a solution to the problem of the squatters. Most of the time when you talk to the local residents, you hear nothing but garbage. So-and-so's a worthless whatever. I won't use profanity. The cops are worthless. Our supervisors are worthless. Nobody cares about us. I disagree 100%. I've sent an instruction letter, email to every one of your offices, and I called to verify that you did receive it. on that instructions are ideas. Now, we can't do anything about AB 109. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that yet. We're working on it, yet. So, since we're a general law county, general law counties can change the verbiage in the ordinances that are already in place. Ordinance, as an example, property maintenance, Title 17, 17, 16, and the numbers go on, you can find them. But instead of saying, oh, look, your weeds are overgrown, here's a citation to the property owner for $250. Wrong answer. You bring everything up to a $1,000 fine, you serve the people in possession, the people that are there on the property. I have facts, evidence of 138 properties that are being squatted upon illegally, with 75 of those are known drug houses. Fact. Not hearsay, fact. And I'm here with the solution to the problem. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Supervisor Couch.
Sir? Sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you give us your name again?
Oh, Jeffrey Walters.
And what email address did you use? Just the district number?
I use the district numbers for each and every office.
Okay.
I physically called the office, spoke to the person on the phone, and I said, hey, you know what? I may not have sent the right one. Can you read the first sentence just to verify? We're good.
There's a whole bunch of them.
I know.
So
I know.
when did you send it, roughly?
Let's see, 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I called to verify.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, if any. Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward to board member announcements or reports will now be heard. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item number 5 under Planning and Natural Resources. Before I get to this item, I do want to make a notation that I want to introduce our interpreter, Fernando Lopez, who is available for anyone in the audience requiring translation of the item's proceedings from English to Spanish. Mr. Lopez, please come down to the podium so we can determine if your services are required. Oh, thank you.
Buenas tardes. Si hay una persona presente que necesita servicios de interpretación, atrás en la mesa hay unos audífonos. Es interpretación para el idioma castellano al inglés y el inglés a la castellana. Gracias.
Thank you. So this is an item under Planning and Natural Resources, and I'll read it at this time. This is a status update for the vision of Kern County Carbon Management Business Park, supported by the U.S. Department of Energy Technical Assistance Services through Communities LEAP program. And our Director of Planning, Ms. Lorelei Ovey, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Chairman Flores, members of the board. It is a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm here today at the dais with 2 of the members of the LEAP team, Cindy Hoover, Division Chief in my department, and James Lawler, who is with Blue Engine, a science educator media company that is under contract to the department. This is the completion of a year-long, Ms. Krause, if I could have the, we have a lot of media going on today, so bear with us here. Okay, there we go. This is the completion of a year-long work on a Department of Energy technical assistance grant, which was awarded in March of 2022, to look at the idea of a Kern County carbon management park. So I want to review how we came up with this idea. So your board actually made, when the Sustainable Groundwater Act started to develop, the idea that there would be 500,000 acres of farmland that would lose their water. Your board actually made a referral to my department to look at ideas through the general plan process on how are we going to support those farmers in monetizing that land. In addition, over the last couple of years, I've participated as a panelist by invitation on a number of workshops. PPIC has done workshops on this, Stanford, UC Berkeley, Nature Conservancy, but all of their ideas center around habitat, open space, or solar. Those are not issues, those are issues that are interesting, but they're not issues that are going to monetize 500,000 acres. So we then received, during that time frame, the Lawrence Livermore Lab project, which looked at the potential for carbon capture and sequestration of millions of acres, primarily focused on Kern County's oil fields. So we were presented with two questions. The first question is, how do we maximize the use of this land with very little water to increase the property value, the tax revenue, the jobs, and to continue to attract investment? And how do we respond to the state's policies and pressures to stall and ultimately destroy our oil industry and along with it our economy? So putting those two questions together, we came up with all of these new industries that were coming to respond to California's policies and looking at Kern County and looking at the potential carbon capture areas. We looked at the idea of centralizing these new industries. None of them have ever been built at scale in California, but they all need specific carbon management infrastructure. There's large amounts of land that they'll need for power, for solar. They have safety impacts that make them industrially based. They're not necessarily compatible with residential and commercial uses. You would not necessarily want these industries in your downtown areas or in your unincorporated communities. So it turns out that we have a perfect triangle of opportunity. And then we had the Department of Energy solicitation for technical assistance. So we looked for advice from community stakeholders, county contacts, and we hired Blue Engine, who are science educators, to help us understand the industries, interview companies, interview these technical experts, and create a visual map. So today we're presenting a website, which is now live. I will note that a full Spanish translation of this website will be live in a month, along with some additional background that we're doing for people who want to dig deeper into our reports. And so now I'd like to introduce Mr. Lawler, who will walk through a sample of the features of the live website.
Thank you, Lorelei. Thank you, members of the board. I'd like to pull up the website here. All right, it is up. Thank you. Blue Engine's role in this project was to, as Lorelei mentioned, survey a slate of industries and essentially assess them and characterize them across a number of different parameters in order to make them more comprehensible to the public that may not, have PhDs in these processes. So we looked at a series of industries across a technological lens, societal lens, environmental lens, and economic lens, and essentially pulled all of that information into this website and into the accompanying report, which will be made live in about a month. The website allows you to navigate through this carbon management business park vision and to click on any of these industries and to then be brought down into the section below to read more about them. So I'll demonstrate what this is like for green hydrogen electrolysis, which is represented here in the park. One can scroll down and read about the technology, all of the different processes that exist to make hydrogen, what characterizes green hydrogen through electrolysis vis-a-vis some of the other ways of producing hydrogen, why this is an industry that is represented in this carbon management park, key technical considerations that are relevant to assessing this technology and its suitability, societal and environmental considerations, and economic considerations. So all of this data that is presented on the site is rigorously cited in the report. So to the degree that anyone wants to dig deeper and know where our team has gotten any information that is presented in this project, you can download the report when that becomes available and essentially learn everything that, where all of the data came from. This also, I'll show also DAC, for example. This is solid sorbent-based direct air capture, which is one of the technologies that we considered. And again, here are the, the various lenses. So where is the industry in terms of its development? What are the energy requirements to power a direct air capture facility, and how does that compare to other things? What is the footprint? So when we talk about direct air capture and pulling CO2 out of the ambient air, how much power and how much land does that actually take? All of the industries have been normalized in terms of this data to 1 million tons per year in terms of carbon capture, so that it's easy to compare apples to apples, if you will, across the different technologies. To show a couple of other parts of the website, we've also built out a comparative analysis where a user can go and basically compare different lenses and how these technologies stack up. So for example, here we're comparing land use and cost to build across the some of the technologies that are represented in the park. So again, this site can be used to learn more about these various technologies, dive deeper, and when the report is live in about a month, go much deeper and track any piece of data that's shown here to the original source. And finally, on the site, there is an FAQ section. So these are some of the questions that we anticipate or have, already been fielding about, about this vision. So what is the Carbon Management Business Park? And again, as Lorelei alluded to, this is a vision for really a world's first in terms of a carbon ecosystem, an industrial ecology that essentially leverages the outputs of one industry as inputs for another. And that is, while at the same time removing millions of tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. It also addresses questions of location. Again, this is a vision, so there is no specific plot that's yet contemplated. Why does this make sense in terms of its placement in Kern County, and other questions here. So again, this is just a sample, and I will pass it back to Lorelei.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. So I'd like to do some acknowledgements, and we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. We are?
We are indeed.
Okay. There we go. Thank you so much. So this was quite a program. We had the Department of Energy. This is the head of the Office of Fossil Energy and Carbon Management. So they paid for their side of it. We contributed money for our side of it. But they did give us some high-level technical expertise at the University of Utah and around the country. I must say the level of enthusiasm was very high for these professionals who thought this was a great idea. And they were very generous with their time, as well as Lawrence Livermore Lab. We also had an executive steering committee. I want to be clear that all of these people gave us very good ideas about what kinds of information and how to present it. The information in this website is the Department of Planning and Natural Resources. It doesn't represent anyone else's opinions. It is reflective of policies that your board has established. But we did have a robust and diverse group of people, and they all legitimately added to the opportunity. I especially want to acknowledge the rest of my team, Mark Tarantino and Julie Williams, who are here, as well as Emily Pope from Blue Engine, who is an extraordinary science educator, and her team. You'll also notice that we did a webinar, which is still in rotation on the web, on DAC, that was highly received. I would say that part of the success of this program, sorry, I did jump over my acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge the CAO's office. Thomas Brown and Ryan Alsop and James Service have been nothing but supportive of this effort from an economic development standpoint. And I think that the number one audience for this is investors and new companies. And when we release the extensive reports that we're releasing in about a month, you will see the many companies that were interested in this, that Blue Engine interviewed about their technology so that we can understand their technology. So next slide. On top of this, we hired Roger Dale from Nadelson to do an economic study. Now, this economic study is based on either a full build out, which is the high scenario, or a partial build out, meaning maybe we only have industries that have 3 to 4 million tons a year as opposed to the 10 million of carbon. But you'll see that these are significant numbers. The total, and we do also once again acknowledge the CAO's office for helping us with this economic study. We are talking at the low end scenario, 29 million. This is general fund and fire fund combined, along with indirects from the cities, ranging from 13,000 employees, permanent employees, to 22,000. These are important numbers. If we are going to find economic development for this 500,000 acres, then using an additional 25,000 acres for the solar to power this park makes sense, because we are using that solar now rather than sending those electrons outside the county to benefit the rest of California. We're actually benefiting our economy and our jobs. And so this is also one of the questions about transmission. There will not be enough transmission from PG&E or Southern California Edison. It may take them as much as 15 years to do the upgrades they need. This park, on the other hand, does not need those upgrades. We could actually build solar. We could actually power these new industries that really are 8 to 10 miles from unincorporated communities. The locations that we're looking at are 8 to 10 miles, benefit everyone, and at the same time benefit these farming entities who have owned this property for generations. Some of the other distinctions, if we can go to the next slide, that we've made in the park, we've put water treatment in the park so that we can do innovative types of water treatment. We've put an R&D facility so that we can have people come from Silicon Valley and, you know, based on the logic of the Mojave Air and Spaceport, they can fail fast, take a risk, they'll have an over-the-counter permit, they can figure out if what they are doing works for the Air District, works for California, and then make adjustments. So the logic behind this park is that, that we might have multiple parks. They would do a specific plan, an environmental impact report, bring it before your board. We could put environmental safeguards in it. We can put the requirements we need for the fire department and for our other partners in managing these kinds of industries. But at the end, these companies would have certainty for permitting in California and an opportunity to not to have a location that was ready to go, the true shovel-ready location. In closing, your board has not considered the carbon capture and sequestration projects. Those are still under development, and those are still have to go through a planning process and an environmental impact report. But right now, the planning department has applications that total over 80 million metric tons of storage. The state of California needs 100 million tons. That means that once again, Kern County would be leading the way in solutions for Sacramento. And while, as Mr. Alsop can acknowledge, Sacramento is not always good about acknowledging that, with these kinds of visions, we can do it ourselves once again and create the atmosphere in California for investment. That completes our presentation. We appreciate your support of this technical assistance grant, and we look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorelei. Once again, wonderful cutting-edge innovation, you know, parlaying our natural geography with our brain power, with industry, and making it all work for our economic benefit. Before we go to the public, do any board members have any comments? Okay. So at this time, I'll start public comment. If anyone has public comment, now's the time to come and address the board.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and fellow supervisors. My name is Richard Chapman, President and CEO of the Kern Economic Development Corporation. Honored to have my name on the executive committee. And, you know, we talk about convergence of technology, especially energy, where we discuss the energy evolution through our energy summit. And this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. And we're very excited to be on the cutting edge, the leading edge of this endeavor. Obviously, support from the federal level, We would love support from the state level, continuing to incentivize this. And I mean, we have the brain power, we have the public-private sector, education at the table, and we're just excited to be at the table. And any way that we can help promote this project, this development, we're here. This is a true incubator. We talk about East Kern, Mojave, Edwards, NASA, China Lake. Their incubators are actually behind the fence. And so this would be, I think, another envy of the world having this in West Kern. We really want to have the R&D in West Kern. Obviously, the educational institutions, KCCD, Taft College, CSUB. I know there's a big conference. I believe Lorelei will be speaking on, and James. That's another testament to what this county can and will do. So thank you. Appreciate your support and any way that Kern EDC can add value to this critical endeavor, not just for our region, but the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Okay, any other speakers under public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and motions. Oh, Supervisor Perez.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Richard Chapman just got me all fired up right now, Lorelei, because, you know, this is really a monumental moment in Kern County. And it is such a culmination of your particular passion and abilities to bring in at one place the private sector ingenuity that is so necessary, right, to push and pay the money and take the risks. And, you know, they have that expertise and they trust you and they believe in you, and to the tune of nearly $70 billion of international investment here, you know, is the, you know, you are the linchpin of what is such an exciting moment for Kern County. So I can't help but just really tip my hat to you personally. You have a remarkable team. This gentleman is, you know, clearly a consummate professional, a genius in his field, and a genius in his field, in his right. That's very obvious, and your team is really, you know, bringing together an opportunity for not just the U.S., but the world to again look at Kern County, to again look at our planning department, right? In the hardest state to do business, God bless Sacramento, in the hardest state to do business, that we would be leading the charge on renewables all across the country, 3,069 counties. It's Lorelei Oviatt and the team of geniuses that you've assembled because, you know, people want to work with you and believe in you. So God bless you, Lorelei Oviatt. This is a very exciting moment. You know, we worked really hard to compete for that $100 million first step. And that, you know, getting the money was one thing, but this really feels like the first solid step, you know, in this becoming our future. And, you know, for all of the skills gap closure that Mr. Turnipseed, that Mr. Chapman, and so many others have been saying is critical to our future. You know, for every job lost to automation, 2.3 jobs are created. You know, you're always the art of the possible. And I want to thank you for your service to Kern, because this is brand new and it's exciting. And I'm, you know, I cherish this moment to make a motion on this, on your recommendation, or just receive and file, whatever it is. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Perez. So we have a motion. Any further discussion?
I would like to turn it back. I appreciate that effusive acknowledgement. I just want to point out that for once, this is the culmination of a board referral. So I just want to make sure. I doubt that I would have spent as much time on that idea if I had not had a board referral. So I do want to acknowledge the board for that beginning moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. I'll second your motion. Been wondering about this. I don't want to be a damper on this today, but I just keep wondering, how is Sacramento going to keep the oil companies from benefiting from this? Is that?
Well, they're actually not. Supervisor
Wow, okay.
Couch, through the chair, I so appreciate that. That is one of the issues here. We are actually this is actually a pathway for the oil companies to monetize their infrastructure. It is an inevitability that even Sacramento is beginning to acknowledge.
But will they be able to take advantage of the I don't know exactly how this is going to. Who gets the credits for the carbon capture? And
The carbon capture underground warehouse gets the credits, but there are other credits for hydrogen. There's other credits for the other projects.
and those can be sold. Those credits.
Yes,
I
they
assume.
can.
So, and will the oil companies be allowed to purchase them?
Yes. And more
They
importantly,
just won't be able to allow to drill. Still, I guess is the,
that's
is the
correct.
issue. Okay.
They will not be able to drill. This is while it was unsaid in your referral that, of course, the oil companies, what are they going to do, to monetize their land? A lot of this land is agricultural land that is losing water, and from that perspective, it's land that if a agricultural company sees an opportunity, they can move water to a different place. In other words, it's not targeting their land, but they have to make decisions as these reductions come down. There's also land in that same area that's owned for habitat by the oil companies. It's the last good habitat in Kern County, and they control that, as well as other land they have. It is a perfect triangle. I'm not going to call it a storm yet. It's a perfect triangle of opportunities, and the oil companies are absolutely involved in this. They were on the executive committee. We also had environmental justice groups. At the end of the day, it is the state of California's scoping plan that said they need to find a way to take 100 million tons of CO2 out of the universe. And the last time I looked, we're not all driving electric cars. So taking it out of the air with direct air capture, creating electricity and other products with other things that we can then capture the CO2 is one of the only ways to make their goal. And just as we lead on renewable energy in California, it looks like we're going to lead on this.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alsop.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I just wanted to comment. We are the right county at the right time, and we have the right planning director. We're very fortunate. I just wanted to give a shout out to Lorelei. Very fortunate to have Lorelei Oviatt and her entire team and consultants on board included in that. We're fortunate, and we are quickly becoming, if we're not already, a thought leader in this space. This is our future. And a good analogy is we're on a stagecoach. Lorelei's driving, and we're headed into new territories. And she's commanding that coach, and we, CAO's office, and others of us in the county are riding shotgun. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Alsop. Supervisor Scrivener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Oviatt, first of all, congratulations on the tremendous work that you've done on this. Obviously, it is exciting, and I really appreciate the way that you prefaced your comments. And that was essentially in the context of the governor's war on our oil industry and how this is essentially forcing Kern County to pivot, I guess is a nice way of saying it, but we're really scrambling for our own survival in light of the foolish and cruel, if you ask me, war on Kern County oil. When you look at the jobs and the families that can potentially be destroyed by the governor's endeavor to kill an industry that you can earn over $100,000 without a college degree. There's very few places that you can do that anywhere in the world, and specifically anywhere in Kern County and California. But we do what we always do, and we figure out a way because we have smart people like you, and we, I think, have some very gumption in Kern County that we should be proud of, that we continually see demonstrated. But what I wanted to ask and perhaps suggest as we put together this website, some of the concepts with carbon sequestration are somewhat abstract, I think. Sort of simple questions like who pays for this carbon to be removed from the atmosphere? Who are the customers? And Supervisor Couch, I think, alluded to it. There are credits that you can purchase, but I think some of the mechanics of how this works would be good to explain as to how, at the end of the day, who pays for this? And so I appreciate some comments maybe today on that, but as we develop this website, so average everyday folks can understand, okay, Kern County, we're going to be doing this, but how does it work? And why is it important? So if you want to make any comments now.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Scrivener, through the chair. I think that's a great comment. We'll add it to the frequently asked questions. Obviously, a lot of questions will be answered through the environmental impact report process that we go through on carbon capture and sequestration as well.
There are some answers to your questions that are included. There are some answers to those questions that are included on the website. If we could just show the website one more time.
Real quick.
Each technology was also assessed through an economic lens. And so I'm showing here the economic lens with respect to direct air capture, specifically solid state. And so you can see. Yeah.
And I think in our reports also, we're going to talk about, once again, the taxpayers are paying for it. We are looking at the credits and how those work, and those are all going to be assessed inside the viability of these projects as well.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. Well stated. You finished? Okay, Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Jeff, I wanted to highlight from the previous list the diversity of participants and stakeholders in the process, right? From our oil and gas partners who have the expertise, the science, and the money to take the risk, frankly, right? To the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Probably the whole of the group is not going to sing Kumbaya anytime soon, right? That's probably not a realistic expectation, but it appears through the history and opportunity that is being presented to Kern County and the clear expertise and ability to be the global leaders continually that we're going to charge forward together. So in that sense, I think it's kind of a purple center project, Mr. Turnipseed, as we think about, right, forging a future that is for all of us, rising tide lifting all boats. I often joke there are yachts and there are lifeboats, right? But we should, at the minimum, all live together and experience the benefit and prosper here locally through our local hire provisions, which Mr. Turnipseed and others absolutely support, to locally invest in our families and local coffers for our streets, for our law enforcement, for our services to this community, Kern County, what is within our hands to do and lead at this moment, global leaders. And I want to just highlight what our CAO said a moment ago in talking about you, Lorelei. He said, she's leading the charge. So we're in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a whole lot to add on everything that was said. I agree. I just want to say, Lorelei, thanks for everything. You're a rock star. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second already. So at this time, I'll ask members to cast their vote.
The motion to receive and file is approved. All ayes.
Great, thank you. Okay, having no additional items to consider, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, April 25th at 9 a.m.
So moved.
Thank you. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Vaccines begin the journey in the laboratory, where scientists work to figure out how best to protect against dangerous germs. Before a new vaccine is made available to the public, researchers usually must do years of lab tests on the vaccine. If lab results look promising and the vaccine appears to be both safe and effective, volunteers will be enrolled to get the vaccines in a series of carefully monitored clinical trials. The manufacturer usually conducts 3 phases of clinical trials. Each phase is designed to gather more information about the vaccine safety and how well it works. These trials can take